ancient days along the Baltic Sea, the kings fought one another and the feuds raged. Some kings were rich, some were made poor, but the wealthiest king of all those tribes along the Baltic Sea was Hrothgar, king of the Mark of the Danes. So much wealth had he accumulated, he was known far and wide as a giver of rings, a dispenser of fine swords. More gold torques did his women wear, more beautiful rings about their necks than anyone along the Baltic Sea. One day, as he neared the end of his life, he decided to honor himself and his wife, Walktheo, and all his shieldings. He would build a mead hall, the greatest mead hall ever made. And so he watched it as it grew 160 feet long, rising high into a great pointed roof with flashings of gold that shed the heavy snows. And along those flashings of gold there were carvings of wyverns and bears and eagles. Inside the hall his throne stood near the end, and tables arrayed with beautiful candelabrum, goblets of gold, bowls overflowing with honey mead could be seen from his throne. Walktheo, his beautiful queen, walked among the tables, and as was her wont, she poured mead for the thanes, and she smiled at their noise. Hrothgar called from his throne, "Walktheo, my queen, pour more mead for our Danes, and loosen our tongues so we can sing." And those songs echoed from the newly built feasting hall and spread across the night air far and wide. But those shieldings sang too loudly, for beyond the fens, in the crags, swirled in mists, there was the entrance to a cave. And inside the cave, the occupant heard something. The occupant stirred and stood to his full height, and he listened. His immense wolf snout sported two gigantic fangs in the front, and the fur that covered Grendel was enchanted so that no blade could pierce it. Grendel the demon was a descendant of Cain, the last one. And so as Grendel stood up and listened to the horrible music, he stirred and he walked to the entrance of his cave, and he listened, and he could hear it coming through the night air made unclean with this sound. He stood to his full height, that of at least 3 men, and he flicked some of the wolf flesh that was stuck between his teeth at the end of his long snout, and his great black tongue licked them off. Grendel ran down toward the sound. You could see the silver moon above the thin snow, and there down below, as he crested the ridge, he saw something he had never seen. It was a box, a large box. He had seen the little humans in their boxes, but never had they seen Grendel. He kept to the fens, and he ate bears and wolves and wyverns. He did not tamper with these little men. Never had he tasted their flesh, and he sniffed. He could smell something he had never smelled before. He ran down toward the hall, even though its timbers were many inches thick and its doors were hinged with gold and brass. He heard it coming from inside. The despised sound took his mighty claws and tore the doors away. He looked inside and he could see little men leaping from their tables, and some of them drew swords, and like fools they attacked him, but as their tiny swords slapped against his legs, Grendel knew they could not harm him, and he grabbed one that bit off the man's head and tasted the blood. Grendel had never tasted blood so sweet before, and so he grabbed the man's leg and chewed off the leg muscles and stood back as something hit him from behind, and he smacked the man away. Never had he tasted meat like this before. So he took a table and swung it and knocked 5 men unconscious against the wall. They grabbed them and piled them onto the table. More men came at him, swatting at him with their tiny little blades. It felt like nothing against his fur, and he grabbed more of them until finally he had piled 30 men dead upon the table, and grabbing at a few more and squeezing them dead, he turned and walked out. Upon reaching his cave, Grendel feasted upon the bodies of the men, and he decided this meat was the sweetest meat ever he had eaten. Sweeter than venison, sweeter than bear meat. This meat he would eat until there was no more. So it was, Grendel the beast returned every night to this great feasting hall named Hierot, the stag, and he devoured the men. It soon became apparent to the Danes, and particularly to old Hrothgar, that this could no longer be used, this great hall, beautiful as it was. And so they removed the golden goblets, they removed the tapestries, they took down all the shields that in glory lined the walls, and they locked it up every night. For 12 years, the Danes lived in fear. Even Hrothgar had to find a new place to hide each night. always worried whether Grendel would find him, tear off the roof. He would see that hated face, and a hand would come down and take old Hrothgar as well. And a darkness descended upon the land, and no songs were sung. Ships continued to ply the Baltic, and as always with ships, news traveled with them, until the news of the old king's plight reached the land of the Gads, and the ears of one particular thing named Beowulf. Beowulf had earned much glory in battle, and it was said that he had the grip of 30 men. And yet he was mild in his conduct with his friends and polite to all. He was known for his wit and his mischief. And it was one day as he sat there at his feasting table and he looked at his thanes, he said, "That's right. I was five. Then I killed my first bear." His cousin Beowulf looked at him and knew Beowulf was lying again. "Oh, Beowulf, you know that's not so." "Then I hate when people know the truth. No, I was 5. No, I was 11. I was 11. The bear was 400 pounds. I was 11. He looked at his things. I was wondering if have all of you heard of what is happening in the mark of the Danes to Hrothgar the king? Yeah, we have heard, Beowulf. Yeah, we have heard. Yes. I don't know if you know this, but when I was a little boy, my father, Edsteo, had killed a Vilfing, and there was a blood price on his head, and they would have found him and killed him. Except we journeyed to the land of the Danes, and you know Hrothgar, he was young then. He played a harp, and then he paid the blood price for my father, and he saved him. You know that? What if we all go to Hrothgar's land and we kill his Grendel monster for him? What do you say? Oh, we will go with you, Beowulf. We will go. He looked at his 12 favorite thanes. Good then let us build the boat. And so they took a long log of stout oak, and then with ribs upon it, they bent planks to soften them and stretch them, and with a pitch made of sheep's wool and pine pitch, they filled it and made it waterproof, threw planks across it, and then they carved a dragon's head upon the head stem. And one day at the edge of the sea, they looked at each other and pushed it in, and they built that boat. that land near the land of the Swedes, until at last, on a great stormish day, they hailed the high cliffs of Denmark, and their ship rode up onto the beach. Heavy boots, heavy belts, heavy axes, heavy swords, heavy shields, and heavy spears hung about them as they clattered down onto the stones. When all at once, a horseman came thundering down from the cliffs toward them. It was a watchman. Beowulf saw him and said, "Keep the weapons down, keep them down." The man galloped up to right in front of Beowulf, and the spear point stopped right before Beowulf's face. And the man looked angry and said, "Who are you who dare come to this land with no notice of your coming?" Brave man on his horse. Be not afraid. I am Beowulf of the Geats, and I come in peace. We have come to kill Grendel. The man sat back in his saddle. Indeed. Very well. Bring your horses. We will care for your dragon ship. Follow me. And so they followed the man along winding cliff paths until they crested the paths, and there they could see Heorot rising in the early morning light. As they approached it through the thin skim of snow, they passed a little graveyard with tiny crosses. Beowulf looked and said, "Who are those tiny grave markers for who have no names?" "They are for the feet and hands that Grendel sometimes leaves. Come this way." They arrived at Heorot's doors. Repaired many times, they could see that they were great gashes, as if giant swords had swept in lines down the wood, were visible. "Wait here." He walked in, the man did, and out came a herald. "We understand that you are Beowulf of the Geats, and you have come to visit, yes? Come to kill the monster. I will announce you to the king." The herald went back inside and returned shortly thereafter. "The king knows of you and your family. Leave your weapons here. Enter." So they walked into Heorot, dimly lit with only a few torches and candles. There were tables, but not adorned. Sad-looking people sat, scattered along them, and at the very end, the Beowulf could see old Hrothgar. He had changed. He walked up to him and fell to his knee. "King Hrothgar, I am Beowulf of Geats, and I have come to kill your Grendel for you." The king sat back and recognized what had once been a little boy, but was now an immense man. "Oh, Beowulf, I remember you. You were but a little boy. You came with your father, ate still. The very things wanted him, I paid a blood price for him. But that was then, and this is now, and look, you've grown. And you are strong. I understand you have the grip of 30 men. More. Oh, more. At that moment, out stepped a drunken man who nearly stumbled and then got himself upright and looked up at Beowulf. His name was Unferth. He was an aide to the king, and he said, Beowulf? Beowulf? Have we not heard his name? Beowulf. Was it not you who swam against Breca in the channel race and lost? Washed up days later on the windy beach. A loser like you is going to kill Grendel? I don't think so. And first, be quiet. You say this to me. You're drunk. Look at you. It's true. I came to the beach last. But I did battle and made the channel safe for Breca. We jumped in the water. He was a strong swimmer. We had our mail and our swords and our helmets, and we began to swim. But a great storm came up. I remember I was separated from him in the giant waves, and then all at once monsters came around me. Giant monsters, veils first, and so I hit the veils with my sword and smote them dead. But then suddenly from below me up came giant sea monsters as big as this Herod building, and they came at me, and I put my sword down into their bellies, and they died. You, what's your name? Unferth. If you are so brave, why have you not tried to kill Grendel? And if you have tried to kill Grendel, why are you still alive? I can help you with that. Oh, Beowulf, please, please. Unferth is a man of no account. Jealous and foolish. My lord, shut up, Unferth. Beowulf, Unferth is not our enemy. Grendel is our enemy. But I must warn you, if you're going to attempt to kill him, you're going to have to do it with your hands. Iron, gold, silver, bronze. Everything we have tried, nothing can pierce his hide. He's a monster. He's a Shera, yes. A Shera, old Hrothgar's very best and oldest friends. They'd grown up as children together. Said to Beowulf, "It's true, Beowulf. He's like a wolf on giant's legs. Teeth, claws." At this point, Wiglaf, Beowulf's cousin, nudged him and said, "Beowulf, no blades." Fate often saves an undoomed man if his courage holds. And so, that day, a feast was made. The Danes brought out their finest food. They roasted a wild boar. They brought out brined birds' eggs, dried venison strips, honey cakes, dried fish. And they feasted and fed of the hungry men from Gatland until old Hrothgar stood up and said, "Berthail, my queen, please pour mead once more for brave Beowulf." Beowulf took the bowl and held it up high and said, "I pray to God that he will show me a way to kill the beast. Either I will be his end, or he will kill me and drink my blood and eat my flesh." Afternoon began to wester into night, and the Danes looked at one another, and Hrothgar rose. "If you survive this night, you will be rewarded, Beowulf, such as you have never been. I am the giver of rings, and many do I possess. May God be with you. Come, let us go." And all the Danes filed out. Night descended. Beowulf stripped down to just his leather breeches, and the men slept in a circle around him, just a few candles going. As he sat there, he talked to his cousin Unferth. Beowulf lay in the center of the circle of Danes. "You know, you don't have to stay if you don't want to." "Beowulf, what do you think?" "Just wanted to ask." In his cave, Grendel stirred. He stood, sniffed with his long snout, and he could smell something coming from the valley below, but it did not smell the same. Yes, he smelled the Danes as always he did, but there was something else. So he walked down his nightly path through the moonlight until he grew close to the doors, and he knew inside someone was actually sleeping in the hall. They hadn't done this in years. No, they did not smell like Danes. And so he opened the great doors quietly and looked in. There, a circle of men, and a big man sleeping between them. Uncharacteristically quietly, Grendel walked toward the circle of men, and one man he found picked him up, tore off his head, and drained him like a bottle. No, these were delicious, but they did not taste like Danes. And then he saw the man in the middle, a big man, just more human to eat. And so Grendel stepped over the pile of men and stood above the large room. Big hands, strong arms, and Grendel grabbed him by the wrist. But suddenly, the man grabbed Grendel back by his wrist, and the fingers were stronger than any fingers he had ever felt, and they gripped him so hard that the fingernails punctured his flesh, and he flipped away, fending off the man. But the man suddenly jumped up and said, "Hello, beast," and he jumped toward Grendel. Grendel was shocked and swatted at the man, but the man suddenly dodged the swat and with his front fist banged out both of Grendel's front fangs. His fangs? What would he do without his fangs? And he looked and he backed away for a moment, but then the man suddenly was upon his back, and Grendel screamed, for never had he felt such strength before. He swatted the man away and began to back toward the door, thinking this perhaps was not the man to fight, not this night. But the man would not let him go and jumped upon him and took his powerful fingers and rooted them down into Grendel's right shoulder and twisted out a strap and weakened Grendel's shoulder. Grendel threw the man against the wall, but the man flipped up and jumped over one of the rafters and landed back upon Grendel's back again and dug those nails into the wound on Grendel's back. Grendel now felt fear for the first time in all his life. He fended the man off, trying to tear him away, and the man, once he was thrown, just rolled. Grendel decided he would run for the doors. This was no man to fight. And as Grendel ran for the doors, they began to speak to each other in their squeaking voices, the man who was chasing him, and then the others leapt up and they ran to the two giant swinging doors. And just as Grendel ran between them, they slammed the doors shut, and Grendel's right arm was caught between the doors, and the man was holding onto his wrist, pulling at Grendel. Grendel could not free himself, and so terrified he was, he pulled with all his strength on the remaining straps, and the flesh that held his arm to his body tore away, and the arm was stuck in the door, and Grendel, gouting blood from his wound, ran up back toward his cave. All he wanted to do was find his cave. Beowulf, are you hurt? No, I'm not hurt. Oh, that blood stinks. Oh, stinks as bad as he does. No, I am not hurt, but he is. Die then, beast! Die, for I have a part of you! Hearing all the hubbub, in ran Hrothgar. Beowulf! Beowulf had taken a ladder and put it up near the high lintel log above the doors and was in the process of nailing Grendel's great hairy arm above the door. Yeah! You live! Yeah! He wanted to flee, but but I would not let him flee, so he left the part of himself here. Soon he bleeds out. He is dead. Oh! The old king watched as Beowulf came down the ladder. Beowulf! You did it! Yeah, I did. No. And they bestowed upon him gifts. They brought out the goblets and the torques. They lit the candelabra. They set out the tapestries. They rehung the shields. And they began to sing again. Meanwhile, in his cave, Grendel watched the last of his blood drip out onto the stones. And he felt that last bit of life leaving his body, and soon he was grappled down to hell. That afternoon and night, they bestowed gifts upon him, Beowulf such as he had never known. A coat of mail whose ringlets were so close together that no blade point could penetrate it. A fine war flag and a sword. And he hefted the sword and looked at it and said, a fine sword, Hrothgar. He didn't really like the sword, but he figured he should say that. Yes, the best sword of the Danes. Yeah, I'm sure it is. And this. Then he was given a helmet covered with green and clear and red gems. This helmet would glow in the deepest of gloom, Beowulf. You can enter a cave, and you will be able to see where you are going. Oh, thank you, Hrothgar. And so, with his gifts, Beowulf and the thanes left to find a place to sleep, for truly they had not slept since they had arrived in the mark of the Danes. The songs were sung all night in the hall. So happy were the Danes they could not fall asleep. It was just before dawn. A shadow passed across Grendel's carcass in his cave. And from the giant's shadow, there came a voice. Grendel! Where is your home? Although Grendel could not speak, Grendel's mother could. And she looked at his mangled body, lifeless, and said, sweet child of the woods, they killed you. And she ran outside, and she saw that the trail of blood that had gouted from his shoulder led down to the settlement of men. And so, with her heart breaking, Grendel's mother dragged her son to her mere. It was dark, filthy water, very deep, between giant shoulders of stone and a few pine trees along the top. And she bore his body down into the dark, stinking water until she came to her cave. It was a space filled with air deep at the very bottom of the mere, and there she left left her son, and in a fury, she began to run. She followed the trail of blood down from the cliff, following her son's bloody path until she saw the doors. They had never seen her. She had always kept to herself, never wanting to reveal herself to the humans. But this time she wanted her son's arm back. And at this point, Hrothgar was saying, Shadow, we have seen so many things in our lives. Never did I think I would live so long to see Beowulf's miracle. Yes, Hrothgar, it is a good time. The songs are sung again. Yes, if just when suddenly the doors blew apart and the giant she-beast, hairy like Grendel, but not quite as big, thundered down. Looking around, Thanes, of course, jumped up, and they swung their swords at her. But unlike Grendel, who didn't seem to fear blades, she leapt out of the way of them. But she charged toward the old Hrothgar, calling, "Where is my son? Where is my son's arm?" Ashera jumped out with his sword to protect his king, but as he swung it, she smacked it away and bit down onto his skull and tore off his entire face. Ashera! Where's my son's arm? She grabbed Ashera's body and she began to run, and that was when she saw there it was, up above the doors. As she passed beneath it, she jumped up and leapt and grabbed the arm and tore it from its place and dashed out. The old man fell to his knees. In ran Beowulf, having heard. What is happening here? What is happening? She said she was Grendel's mother. I did not know. She was there. She killed my friend Ashara. I know anymore. My life was once bright gold. Now it is dull lead. Forgive me. I should not weep, but Beowulf looked at him. Better to avenge the death of a friend than to indulge in mourning, he thought. So there was another monster, and he remembered sailing home with his father, free from that blood price. And that was when Hrothgar spoke impossible words. Kill this she-beast, and you will become my son. Beowulf stood back. Those words meant that Hrothgar would give him full half of all his wealth. This was no small offer from the richest man along the Baltic. If I kill her, I become your son as if natural born. Yes! Kill her! Very well. Saddle a horse, and we will track Grendel's mother. And so, riding on a plated mane, old Hrothgar, followed by a few of his men, and the now 11 Thanes remaining in Beowulf's crew, followed through the skim of snow. tracked the bloody drips. It came to a place where they passed the fens and stopped before a mere. The trail of blood led into the water at its edge. This place, there were wyverns swimming in the blood-red water. Chunks of gore floated among them, and other beasts sat by the shores and watched. And high up on top of the cliffs, they beheld poor Asherah's head. Hrothgar rubbed a tear from his eye. She's down in there. Beowulf looked at Beowulf. Beowulf, you're not going to go in that water, are you? Fate often saves an undoomed man if his courage holds. At that moment, up walked Unferth, the drunken man who had insulted him. Unferth held out a sword. Beowulf, this is Hrunting. This is the best sword of the Danes. When it was made, it was not quenched in smith's water. It was quenched in blood, and the blades are poisoned. Never has Hrunting failed to kill. Take it. And if I do this, Hrothgar, I am your son as if natural born. Yes, Beowulf. Yes. He walked to the edge of the water. He was wearing the mail shirt and the helmet with the gems. You and I are forgiven, Unferth. And Beowulf walked into the water until his head sank beneath the surface. Intermission, 5 minutes. Well, I hope you're refreshed. Now, one thing I will say, as I'm sure you've observed, that this is a relentlessly spooky and dark story. And as I also mentioned, it's mostly just a bunch of men having a difficult time in life. To contrast that, though, because these aren't the only kinds of stories I tell, next Sunday, my last Zoom show of this winter season will take place. And it is completely different. It is dedicated to girls, and exclusively to girls. I tell 4 fairy tales, some of my very favorite stories to tell to children, young children. They can be in first grade, they can be 3 years old, and there won't be anything that will scare them in these delightful stories. The show is called She's Clever, that one. Fairy Tales for Smart Girls. And if you go to my website, oddsbodkin.net, and go into the store there, you'll see the tickets are available. And I'll be telling a story with a harp and with a couple of guitars. And this is completely different and really a lot of fun. And so with that said, let us return to Beowulf the Only One. The second half is a little bit shorter. Deep under the water, Beowulf began to sink, and he was happy to see that indeed the lights from his helmet lit nimbuses of green and red light in the stinking murky water. No one knew how deep the mere was, and so he had no way to know how long it would take him to drift to the bottom. Strangely and wondrously, the helmet seemed to provide him air to breathe within it. Meanwhile, down at the bottom of the mere, Grendel's mother sensed something coming down toward her cave.
It's a man with a sword! What kind of a sword?
She only feared giant-made blades. Blades made by mortal men could not harm her, but if a giant-made blade was that which this man held, she had reason to fear.
What is it?
At last, he drifted down, and Beowulf felt the ooze at the bottom of the mere sink around his boots. It was pitch black except for the little lights in front of him, and he held out, grunting in the water. You must be down here somewhere. Where are you? Where are you? From inside her cave, she could see him. At least she could see the lights coming from his helmet. She walked to the edge where the water rippled at the feet of the ledge itself, and her giant clawed toes wrapped around the rocks. He would never be able to see her, and so she slipped into the water and very quietly swam to a round behind him. One good grip of her jaws would puncture any helmet ever she had encountered. And so she swam and approached and then gripped the helmet. Beowulf, feeling it shrinking around his head, quickly scuttled out from beneath it and turned around and pulled grunting through the thick water, but the water was too thick, and she swam away back into her cave. But he saw from the lights where she had gone. He grabbed his helmet, pulled the sword, and landed there inside her cave, right upon the ledge. A quick glance showed him everything. There was the monster Grendel's body with the arm next to him, and behind, off in a corner, a gigantic pile of ancient weapons and goblets and torques, giant-made things with strange runes. Now, he thought with one swing of Runting, he could take off her head. And so he ran toward her, and hey! But the blade that had been given to him began to melt in his hands. What? What? No! They backed away. The blade completely vaporized, and Grendel's mother leapt upon him and slammed him back down into the pile of weapons. And she said, "Oh, you killer of my son, now you will die!" And she felt around and found a dagger, lifted it up, and thrust it right into his chest. Beowulf would have died then. But the blade could not pierce those fine ringlets of Danish mail. And at that moment, he slid out from under her and said, "No, no, undoomed, undoomed, undoomed." She crouched preparing to jump for him when there he saw, off in a corner, leaning against stone, a gigantic sword. Never had he seen such a mighty weapon. He looked at it.
You'll never lift that! You can't lift that!
Undoomed, undoomed! He grabbed it by the hilt and he started to try to drag its tip across the floor. He charged at him, and just at that moment, he hurled it upward, the blade into the air. It caught her neck, and then her head rolled away, and her giant body fell to the stones. Die, wolf bitch! How do I prove this? That I have done this? He looked around. There seemed to be no more of the demons. You're the last two. Yeah. How do I prove this? Yeah, Grendel, your head will do. And so, he looked up at the cave ceiling. Thank you, God, for showing me this sword. Thank you. He took the giant made sword and he swung it at Grendel's neck. Your head I will take. But as soon as he swung it against Grendel's head, as he cut it off, this blade too vanished, melting all the way down to just its jeweled hilt. Very heavy. Well, too heavy to swim with anyway. And so he took Grendel's head by the ear, dragged it to the edge of the ledge, pushed it into the water, put on his helmet, took the hilt of the giant-made sword, and swam for the surface. Now Hrothgar, just about a half hour before, had looked at the mere, and a great bubbling had occurred. And he had said, I think the sheepist was too much for Beowulf. We should go. It's getting dark. We should go. What if she comes for us? We should go back and hide. Are you coming? He called to Wiglaf and Beowulf's men. No, we will stay. Sometimes Beowulf enjoys taking his time doing things. We will stay. As you wish. Come. Let us go, men. And so the Danes disappeared in the gloaming. Beowulf's men killed the wyvern and roasted its flesh and waited by the fire until at last, shortly after, they beheld a bright set of lights from beneath the blackish water and Beowulf appeared. Ha! Beowulf, you live! Yeah! Oh, and something for you! He tossed Grendel's mighty head onto the shore. Ah! And she is dead too! Yeah, she is dead! There are no more of our kind. And overjoyed, the men speared with 6 spears the mighty head of Grendel, for it took that many of them to take it back to Herod. Old Hrothgar was just preparing to close the doors when he saw there the men walk in. Beowulf! You live! Yeah. She is dead too. She's dead, Hrothgar. There were no more of her kind. The old man, as if he were a child, ran up and grabbed Beowulf about the waist and wept, Beowulf! Forever, people, speak of what you have done here. And I now am your son, as if natural born. Yes. So the next morning, the Danes assembled with the thanes of Geirland. For the rest of your life, my second father, live in peace. And so they sailed away. When Beowulf arrived back in Geatland, King Hygelac honored him for what he had done. And time passed. Hadred died shortly after King Hygelac died, his son, in battle. And so it was that the people asked Beowulf if he himself would become their king. And full 50 years passed in his good reign. No Wilfings, no Frisians, no Franks darkened Geatland's shores. And it was one night as he and Wiglaf, now old, their beards white, stood on the battlements of Beowulf's castle. The Beowulf and his old friend were looking down at the roof of the beautiful mead hall, larger and more magnificent even than Herod, that he had built with old Hrothgar's money. And philosophically, Beowulf said, you know, Wiglaf, I wonder sometimes that if a monster like Grendel came to our shores, whether there would be a young man like me, a young Beowulf to come and save me. Oh, there aren't very many like you, Beowulf. But still I would welcome that. Alas, I have no sons. A son might help me, but I would welcome that. And all at once, a bright explosion of light happened across the roof of the mead hall down there. What is that? Fire erupted below them. What is that? And he heard, what is that? There were 2 mighty wings beyond the turret, up in the air. What is this? People began to run down toward the mead hall, throwing buckets of water. He and Wiglaf, as fast as they could, ran down the battlements, and there, hovering in the air, was something he had never, ever dreamt he would see in his life. It was a fire drake It was as long as Hierat had been, and its eyes were green and malevolent, and its tongue, with a groove in its center, poured a kind of oily flame down upon the feasting hall's roof. Where did this come from? I don't know, Lord. What is this? The giant fire drake seemed to look at Beowulf, and then flapped back and turned. It left a long necklace of burning homes as it flew into the darkness toward the sea. Where did this thing come from? Where did this thing come from? And at that moment, coming down along the battlements, 2 of his soldiers dragged a dirty-looking man. King Beowulf, look what we have found. What is this? Show him what you found. Show him what you took. The trembling man pulled out a goblet. Oh, it was covered with runes. The sort he had not seen anywhere in human kingdoms ever since he had been in Grendel's mother's cave. Where did you get this? Where did you get this? Tell me or I will strike you dead. From a cave. You found this in a cave. You stupid, dirty man. You have awakened something that has always slept. I fear you have awakened the death of me. You will show us where this cave is tomorrow. He turned to Wiglaf as the thief was led away. Wiglaf, fire. It has no hand to grip, it has no blood to bleed. To kill this beast, I must get through it. But you're not going to face it, Lord, are you? Who else will do it? Always. I am the only one. Who else will do it? Make me a shield, round and very wide of iron. No linden wood, linden will just burn. Bring it to me in the morning. And sadly, he went to his room. Once the shield was delivered the next morning, and the guards in 12 thanes stood with the thief who had stolen the beautiful, strange vessel, goblet-like thing, the Beowulf buckled on his sword. It felt heavier than it had ever felt before. And that was after he had put on that mail shirt. It too felt heavier than ever it had before. Fate often saves an undoomed man if his courage holds. I think I am doomed. They all processed, following the thief out to the cliffs away above the sea. And the thief pointed at the cavern. From the cavern issued a steaming runnel of hot water. The 12 thanes had sworn to fight with Beowulf once they had moved the dragon outside, and they hid behind rocks. You stay there. Wiglaf had come to. This is my duty. So he walked up and to the cave entrance and threw a rock. And he heard a clattering, as if hundreds of men were banging their shields against one another. And he said, what is that? And then all at once, out came the drake. It had been the clattering of its scales. It towered above Beowulf, its malevolent face upon a long neck. The scales grew thinner and thinner toward it. Beowulf did what he always did. He ran in for the killing stroke, but as he did it, his sword broke. No! 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 Annoyed, the dragon looked down. Beowulf cowered under his round shield, and it poured boiling oil down upon Beowulf's shield. The flames dripped all around him, and he began to cook. Danes, called Beowulf, come help your king! He needs you now! But the Thanes were terrified of the giant standing above Beowulf. Come help him think of all the things he gave you, all the oaths you swore to him. But they just retreated into the woods. Oh, Beowulf, master! And Beowulf dashed toward Beowulf and jumped underneath the giant shield through the dripping oil flames. Beowulf was steaming and stared at him with strange eyes. Are you the young man come to save me? No, Lord, no, just Beowulf, just Beowulf. And at that moment, the fangs of the dragon appeared underneath the edge of the shield, and they bit two holes in Beowulf's shoulder. Oh! Beowulf, the neck so close, took his sword and slashed at the neck, and one of the small scales popped loose. But then it poured burning oil down upon Beowulf's hand. And he pulled away. Beowulf, with his last strength, saw where the sword had struck the dragon's neck. There, a small patch of unprotected flesh could be seen. He pulled out his dagger, threw the shield away. And it struck. Blood gushed from the wound. Blood meant for the dragon's heart gushed down its mighty neck. The dragon had lived for 500 years. It thought it could never die. And in astonishment, it felt the blood leaving its body. And in disbelief, it looked down at Beowulf and then fell. Beowulf ran up to Beowulf. Lord! He got off the mail shirt and the undergarment. There were two hideous wounds. Lord! Oh, mortal wounds, Beowulf. No, we will stanch the blood. It's not the bite, it's not the wounds, it's the poison. Beowulf stared, and suddenly, puffing from the two holes, came blackish and yellowish flesh, steam. He got Beowulf in his arms. Rule in my place. Protect the people. Oh, we are the last of our kin. All of this swept away by the sword. Beowulf, you came to help me. Thank you. For once, I was not the only one. they buried Beowulf beneath a mound of stones at the edge of the sea, visible from far away. They hoped this might keep their enemies away. But deep in their hearts, the Geats knew that word would travel, that the great protector of the Geats was dead. They knew that the Franks and the Frisians, the Angles and Nilfings would hear that Beowulf was dead, and their sons would remember, and they would come in ships. But unlike Beowulf, who had come to Hrothgar's shores, mission of mercy, bathed in light, these men would come bathed in darkness. No mercy,